My name is Barbara. I'm 67 years old and I've seen more than I'd like. Why? I lived a quiet life with my husband Walter in an old wooden house in the middle of the pine trees near Asheville. I always thought that after so much struggle, you after so much struggle, the end would be peaceful. But have you ever stopped to think if you really know the people you created inside your own home? Ever wondered what someone would be able to do for money? Because I thought I knew my son. I thought that, no, after everything I did for him, my don't count. He would protect me, but I was wrong, niece. And when I saw it, it was too late. I only remember his hand pushing my back and Walter's whisper in my ear, "Pretend we're dead." Maybe you're here because you also feel like there's something wrong with your family. A strange silence, a distrust that haunts you. I know what that is, and it'll tell you exactly how it all happened, from the first suspicion to the bottom of that cliff. By the end of this story, washed, nothing wet, you'll understand why silence is sometimes the only weapon a mother has, and why, this time, I didn't die. I woke up, but before we dive into the heart of this story, I need you to know one thing. No one wakes up on a Sunday expecting to die at the hands of their own child. Walter and I were taken to a mountain trail under the pretext of celebrating our wedding anniversary, and it was there, in front of the most beautiful view I have ever seen, that our son pushed us off a cliff. We fell together. The wind, the stone, the silence, and in the midst of the blood and pain, Walter turned his face to me and whispered, pretend we're dead." What he didn't know, was that we had a plan. If you're here listening to me, maybe it's because you've also felt that something in your family isn't right. And I want to ask you, from the heart, if this story touches something inside you, leave a like, subscribe. This is not by numbers. No, it's just so I know that you're here with me, listening to me, understanding how, because this story is not just mine. It is of every mother who was betrayed by the one she loved the most. And before continuing, I needed to feel that I am not alone to tell it. I remember the house we built as if remembering a good dream. I'm not just talking about the walls and the roof, talking about what it represented. Every corner had our story. The kitchen, where I spent entire mornings baking pumpkin bread. The balcony, where Walter waited for me with tea every Friday night. The boys' room, with the height marks on the wall, with the yisirna, from when they grew up and I said they were going too high to fit in my arms. I married Walter on a spring Saturday in the White Chapel of Brevard. We had almost nothing, but we had one certainty. We wanted to build a home, not just a house. Andrew came first. He was a boy full of light. Wherever he went, he left a trail of laughter. She was the type who helped her neighbor carry groceries and came back with cookies hidden in her pocket. He said he was going to be an environmental engineer, that he wanted to heal the planet. He was always protective of me, even as a child. When I got sick, he would sit by the bedside and read aloud, as if My healing was in his words. Travis was born 7 years later. No, it was different, quiet, very observant. He had a look that did not reveal what he felt. I loved him the same way. Of course, a mother loves without measure, even when she doesn't understand. Oh, but Travis always seemed distant, while Andrew wanted to be outside. Travis liked to be alone in his room, fiddling with things, dismantling clocks, listening to conversations without participating. Now, Anados Notomai. He grew up like this, more connected to his father, more practical. I said that he was an old man inside a boy's body. On Sundays, my house was full. Andrew would bring his friends from college. Walter would play the guitar. Linda, and I came see him to Candice. And I would make my famous apple pie. Travis would come, me, eat quietly, and return to his room. When he met Madison, everything changed. She was nice, one of those people who know how to smile at the right time, but with a fake twinkle in her eye. Still, Madame noticed I'd sent her a card. I tried to like her. They say, Chanzignon, Tatsel, and Conchitalco. I offered everything. I taught her my recipes, gave her a dress of mine that she complimented. Oh, but she never looked at me as a mother, only as an obstacle. I made sure to embroider her name on a dishcloth, as I did with everyone in the family. It was my way of saying, "You're part of this." She never used it. I kept it in a drawer, a cloth that is too clean, that no one wanted to dirty with affection. No, looking back, I realize that the signs have always been there. Travis never showed the same affection as Andrew, and Madison always talked about big things. Inheritance, investments, future, mom. When we organized birthdays, she said that it didn't make sense to spend so much on old people's parties. I laughed on the outside. No, when? Inside. No, went down. He bled slowly. I'm sorry for opening my heart like this, but can I ask you something? You've also done everything for someone. And yes, you felt it wasn't enough. Have you ever done your best and yet been treated like a burden? If this touched any of your wounds, comment below with a word that summarizes what you felt. It can be "I've lived it," or just a "touched me." I'm going to read each one. I need consider dar sincerely at sitnistyle, because when we share the pain, it weighs less. And believe me, no matter how beautiful a family looks on the outside, sometimes the holes live inside. But the first crack only really appeared on the day Andrew died. What once? And what happened that night? To this day, he wakes me up at dawn. Andrew's death was like thunder in clear skies. They said it was an accident. He was camping with friends in the mountains. Slipped. Linda Mana was Sihel. Neither Karcher and Carbon Sir. Hit his head and wore near arm. But to this day, inside me, something does not accept this version. He was experienced, careful, and that week, before he went, hard alone, He was strange. He said he needed to talk to me when he returned. It's about Travis. Mom, there's something you need to know. Those were the last words I heard from him. Then came the phone call. Yeah, the rush, the cold news in the hospital corridor. And then, calm, silence. A silence that crept between the boards of the house, in the drawers, in the mornings. When I did her child, and Walter immersed himself in working with wood. How? Stopped talking for days. I clung to the Bible and the violets. But Travis has changed. Suddenly, now, content so well. He was too solicitous. I made coffee. I wondered how I was. He helped me in the garden. I tried to cling to it. After all, it was what was left. But something about his way bothered me. It was like care without heat, as if he were following a role. Madison appeared the following year. Young, beautiful. Nay, no, city sishamino stay. Smiling. I brought flowers on the first visit, and a folder with documents on Monday. Have you ever thought about organizing bills, medical records, insurance? She said, as if talking about time. Knelt down. I thought it was strange, but I swallowed it. No, I thought maybe she was just a practical girl. And what can a mother-in-law say without sounding bitter, right? They started coming often. Travis, once so absent, now came almost every weekend. But they never brought gifts, nor sincere questions, only demands. Oh, now, update the health plan, change the car, take inventory of the house, just in case. Mom, he would say. Ow. I pretended not to bother, but I did. I felt when she moved my kitchen without asking. When he suggested selling Andrew's land. When they asked me about papers that I didn't even remember where they were anymore. The worst thing was to hear Walter fall silent. He watched everything in silence, as if carrying a guilt that I didn't understand. Sometimes I caught him looking at Andrew's photo with a look that wasn't just one of nostalgia. It was as if I was afraid of something that had already happened, or that was yet to come. New. One day, Madison walked into Andrew's room and left with a notebook. He said it was just curiosity, but that notebook had drawings that he never showed anyone. It was the most intimate part of him. I wanted to scream, but I swallowed it, because screaming in that house became useless. And that's when I realized the son who remained was not the same one I raised. But what did Travis really want from us? What was hidden behind that well-rehearsed care? The answer, I would only find out years later, and it almost cost me my life. How? It was on a gray January afternoon that Travis arrived, with that tone of urgency disguised as concern. He sat at the table with the air of a responsible son and said, Nom, Dad, I fear now will turn out was sick. We need to talk about the will. That sounded too cold to me, as if talking about a contract, not the life of two parents who were still alive. Walter, always more practical, wanted to understand. At first, I froze. It's just a preventative measure. Travis continued, "Oh, we need to make sure that if something happens, everything is in order for the boys." He was talking about his children, our grandchildren. I loved those children, but something about the way he handled the subject made me uncomfortable. Madison appeared soon after, with papers already printed, and a card from the lawyer in Hendersonville. "I've already scheduled it for Thursday at 3, he said, smiling as if organizing a tour. In the lawyer's office, everything went very quickly. Travis explained that it was best to leave the estate in the name of the grandchildren, with him as administrator. Walter immediately agreed. Not me. My eyes ran along the lines of the document, as if looking for some clue as to what it really meant. I remembered Andrew, who said, "Mom, he'll take care of you when Mr. Walter is old. It's going to be just me, you and the garden." He could never comply. And now, I signed a paper that even took away his memory. Madison celebrated the New Testament with an expensive lunch at a restaurant. I couldn't even pronounce the name. He made a point of ordering wine, toasting, taking a photo. The new generation deserves this kind of security, she said, while I could barely swallow the food. Nancy calm and one out and top of the die. On the way back, Walter dozed off in the passenger seat, and I just watched the landscape pass by the window. The trees seemed smaller, the city, farther away, and, for the first time, I felt that the house we built was no longer ours, not because they took away the key from us, but because, at that moment, my heart closed to those who entered as a son and came out as a stranger. But why such a hurry with that will? And why, after that, Travis started to appear more and more, controlling every part of our life? I didn't know it yet, but that signing was just the beginning of something much darker. After that will was signed, Travis and Madison began to appear almost every weekend. But it was no longer a family visit. It was inspection. They walked around the house as someone who evaluates a property before selling. Madison had an opinion on the color of the curtains, the smell of soap, even the food I made. One day, I said that my pumpkin bread was too heavy, and that now there was a new recipe, with less sugar and more purpose. I smiled on the outside. Inside, I wanted to cry. Walter noticed, but said nothing. He tried to get around. He said it was a phase, that Travis just wanted to help. But helping wasn't what they were doing. Travis suggested that we sell the house and move to Charlotte, to an assisted living community. Safer, not calm, he said. Once, I know. Less work. Mom, just press a button and a nurse. Food. Everything comes. As if I were ready to be locked in a place where no one plants violets anymore or hears silence. I said no, on the spot, firmly. You seem tell. But his look was different. It was not disappointment. It was calculating. And there, Outside Sybil. I knew that he no longer had patience with my time. One day, between one visit and another, I went to my room to get an old recipe book and heard voices. Travis was talking on the phone in the hallway. Ha ha. The door was ajar. Ah, we need to solve this soon, before Mom finds out anything. I stopped. I held my breath, and I took 2 steps back, making noise with the slipper on purpose. When I entered, he smiled. He said he was solving a problem at the bank, but his voice was still in my ear. I never forgot it. It's strange how the children think we don't see it, but Mother does. Mother knows, and I knew he was hiding something. Walter didn't want to worry me, but I saw him fiddling with papers, hiding envelopes. At night, he didn't sleep well. Something was being planned now, and I wasn't part of that plan. I'm here, opening my heart, Newton, telling my story with all this weight that I carry on my chest. If you're listening, Mars, if all this makes you think about something you've already lived, leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. It's just a click for you, but for me, it's like a silent hug from someone who's really listening to me, because I still have a lot to tell you, including what Travis has been hiding all these years, and how my husband once decided to tell me everything. Are you prepared to hear what he hid even from me? Walter began to have nightmares almost every night. He woke up sweaty, with wide eyes, and sat on the edge of the bed, in silence. Sometimes I pretended to sleep, but I heard his breath breaking in the middle of the dark room. Other times, he got up, went to the workshop at the back of the house, and came back only when the sky was already clearing. One morning, when I lay so calm, while the light rain was hitting the window, I got up slowly and went to him. He was in the armchair, his eyes lost. Are you okay? I asked, sitting next to him. He took a long time to respond. Then he turned his face to me with the expression of a man who can no longer hold the weight he carries. And then he said, "Ah, Barbara, I never told you. Andrew died because of Travis." I felt my body freeze. I stood still. I didn't understand at first. He held my hand and continued, "Oh," his voice cracking. "Ah." That night, the two had argued badly. It was about money, inheritance, college plans. Travis was angry. Oh. Andrew walked off toward the trail, the same Pisgah trail where, years later, we would also fall. Walter said he decided to follow them from afar. Worried. And he did. He saw with his own eyes Travis push Andrew. A dry, violent push. Andrew fell. Walter ran. But it was too late. Travis cried, said it was unintentional. That he was angry. So cow. That he didn't want that to happen. Walter said that at that moment the world stopped, and he did what many parents couldn't do. He chose silence. I didn't want to lose them both. Barbara, he said, his eyes watering. No, what you say, yet. I thought I could fix it, that could protect you from that. I was speechless. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stood there, feeling the world come crashing down inside me. My son was dead, and the other was alive with this secret. And worse, the man with whom I shared my whole life knew. He hid it from me for more than 30 years. My heart was torn between old grief and new betrayal. It was like losing Andrew for the second time. And, at the same time, losing Walter as well. He tried to justify himself, said he thought about telling, that he regretted it every day. But it was too late. I got up slowly, walked to Andrew's room. Walked to Andrew's room, which was still untouched, and sat on his bed. The blanket still smelled of something stored. There, calm, not until down to in the dark. For the first time, I understood that the grief I experienced was a lie. And the truth, it was still going to cost me a lot more. But what did Travis do to Andrew? It was only half the story, because what he was still about to do to me, and Walter, no one could predict. The day of Andrew's funeral still lives in me with the smell of wet earth and cold flowers. It was raining slowly, and I remember the sound of umbrellas banging against each other. As if the whole world was uncomfortable with his death. Travis stood there the whole time with his arms crossed, his gaze dry. He didn't cry. Oh, not a tear. He just clenched his jaw, as if he hoped it would all be over soon. Madison showed up in a tight black dress, with white flowers that she herself said she bought at the last minute, because I didn't know what his favorite flower was. She knew. It was written in the birthday letter Andrew had left in the kitchen weeks before. Red hibiscus. But no one there seemed to care about the details that mattered to him. At the wake, the coffin was open for a while. I approached slowly, my knees weak. Andrew's hand was cold, and it had a small scar near his wrist from when he fell off his bike at age 12. I ran my finger there, as if I could wake him up, as if there was still time. But what destroyed me most was to see, after everyone had left, the note he had left on the nightstand in his room. Mom, let's talk tonight. That night never came, and this phrase hung in time like a broken promise. I spent many years trying to follow. I stuck to the little things, the garden, the church, the smell of corn cake coming out of the oven. But inside, it was as if I lived with a missing arm. And yet, even with my soul cracked, I continued to take care of Travis. I continued sewing buttons, ironing a shirt, asking if he was cold. No, I did everything a mother does, thinking that love can cure anything. But it does not cure. Love, when it falls into a dry heart, turns into pain. You know, there is a phrase that I repeat in silence when the memory is too tight. What you build with love can be destroyed by selfishness, but what you rebuild after the pain, no one else can tear down. Stay with me until the end of this story, because I promise the strongest moment will yet come, and when it arrives, you'll understand why I had to tell you all this. I remember the fever nights, the exchanged blankets, the times I sold cake at the market to save money for their school. Every outfit they wore in childhood came out of my hands, from my needle. And to think that, even with all this, years later, when so on, I would be pushed to death by the one who remained. Travis didn't just take Andrew away from me. He took away my ground. No, my north, my faith in what I planted. I to know what I must see you call. And the cruelest is that he did all this calmly, Montel, with calculation, like someone who blows out a candle without haste, without guilt, just to ensure the dark. I began to understand his silences, every averted look, every cold hug, every gesture that seemed like kindness, but had the weight of debt. Madison did the same. Once, he gave me a new shirt as a gift, and, in the same week, asked if we could sign a donation paper for the land of the cabin. I didn't trust it anymore. But he also didn't know how to get out. Because when the lie lasts 30 years, it starts to feel true. And I lived inside that lie, unknowingly, oh no, for too long. But deep down, something in me was still breathing. Oh, and it was this part, this small but living part, that began to react. And it led me to do something that Travis never imagined I would be capable of. Something that would begin to change the course of our history. Do you believe that, even after everything, a mother can still turn the tide? Well, that's what I tried to do. And what happened next? No one could predict. It was Travis who suggested it. Dad, Mom, how about celebrating 45 years of marriage with a trail in Blue Ridge? Autumn is amazing there. It's going to be beautiful. He said this with an enthusiasm that did not match our recent history. Madison, next to him, now, smiled the way I already knew. Wide, polished, but never reached the eyes. The proposal was to spend the whole day together, shown too, as a family, known, and then have a picnic at the top. She had already planned the snacks, the safety ropes, the water bottles, even the cameras. Everything is very organized. Too much even. Walter and I exchanged a look that said more than any words. Knew that was not a celebration. It was a disguised goodbye, but we pretend to accept it. Walter was the one who came up with the idea for the recorder. He installed it inside the inner pocket of the coat, hidden by layers of wool. He tested it 3 times. Tested with me how to activate it. I when Ganetis. For my part, Nadia Wan Silbjörn, a child, wrote a letter to my older sister, and in Kamla, would be Susan, me. I wrote everything. Andrew's death, Calm, Walter's confession, the papers in the will, the fears, the suspicions. I signed it and hid it in the back of the closet, along with a copy of the documents and a note saying, if something happens to me and Walter, it's because someone wanted to silence the truth. It was little, but it was all I could do with the time and strength I had left. On the morning of the trip, Little car. The sky was too clear, a brightness that hurt the eyes, as if even God was showing us that we would see everything clearly. Travis arrived earlier than agreed. He was excited, well, smiling, telling jokes about how Walter was going to fall behind on the climb on the Eastern Iron Client. Madison wore new sportswear, full of zippers and pockets, and when he hugged me, he said, "Well, unthinkable. Highness, it's going to be an unforgettable day." I smiled with a trembling soul. The drive to the park was silent. They talked a lot, but it was that talk of someone who tries to disguise the weight in the air. I just looked out the window. The red, blue, golden, oh, falling. They seemed to know that something was ending. My heart beat in a strange way, as if I was in a hurry and afraid at the same time. And it was halfway through, while Walter was pretending to fiddle with the GPS and Travis was talking about the trail, that a deep sadness hit me. No, it wasn't just the fear of dying. It was the pain of knowing that my own son was taking me to this. My feet raised that boy. My hands cradled him. And now he would push me with the same hands that once drew on my lap. I turned my face so as not to let tears fall. But inside me, something cracked. There are times when we realize that life is not fair. It is not beautiful. It is not logical. It just is. And we need to find meaning anyway. Let me ask you something. Just between us, have you ever felt that something very bad was about to happen, but there was no way to stop it? That everything around him seemed to smile, while inside you were screaming? If so, comment below with a "I understand you" or a "I know how it is." Because the shared pain, it hurts less. When we arrived at the park, Madison pulled out her backpack. Walter activated the tape recorder with a shaking thumb, and I took a deep breath. It was the beginning of the end, and even knowing this, I took the first step on the trail as if entering an altar, because on that day, if it were to end, I wanted it to end with dignity. But what I didn't expect was what Travis would say when he thought no one else was listening. And it was there, in the middle of the forest, that his true plan began to unfold. Now, the trail was steep, but what really weighed was the air, a muffled silence among the leaves. Among the unspoken words, Travis led with 2 firm steps, as if he already knows the way. Madison was close behind, making loose, wow, almost sweet comments, but with a venom that only a mother perceives. Here would be a beautiful photo, don't you think? She said this near a fenceless bend, where the rocks rolled by themselves at the slightest touch. I pretended not to hear. Walter offered me his hand. Our fingers clenched as if we still have something to protect. Each step was a weight, not only the body, but of the whole story that walked with me. The dry leaves crackled under my feet as if to warn me. Something is going to break. Travis stopped in a clearing and said, we're almost at the lookout. From up there you can see the whole valley. It's going to be beautiful." I forced a smile. Inside, the soul trembled like a barely closed window on a windy night. We reached the top. It was really beautiful. An immensity of autumnal colors stretched as far as the eye could see, but no one there was interested in the landscape. Madison opened her backpack, took out her camera, straightened her hair, looked at me and said, "Ah, there, Mom, on that edge, it's the best view. The photo will be beautiful." Travis laughed. "It's going to look like you're on top of the world." Walter positioned himself, holding my arm. I hesitated. No, something in the wind warned me. Something in my stomach turned. But I went. Slowly. Down. Travis grabbed the camera and asked us to turn our backs. That way, it feels more natural. Like they're looking at the world together. Unarmed. I heard his footsteps approaching. I felt the weight of silence. And then it happened. Wow. A push. Dry. Fast. Cold. Then the world has been turned upside down. My body flew. Walter screamed. And soon after, everything was stone, pain, thigh, dust, moss, blood, mud, a muffled sound of ribs breaking, and then the whisper, pretend we're dead, no, out you. Walter's voice, weak, between broken teeth. Oh, I didn't think about it. I just obeyed. More. I closed my eyes. I controlled my breathing. I felt the blood run down my forehead, down my mouth, the taste of iron, his back throbbing. Silence again. I see it. I bound. A different silence, a silence of absence. Steps, muffled laughter up there. Now, the sound of leaves being stepped on. Now, the distant click of a camera being turned off. And then, nothing, nor help, nor despair. Nothing. I lay there, motionless. Walter next to me. Breathing hard. Wow. Disentan. No desiwanahisham. The recorder. Netesison. What the? It was in his pocket. If it were working, we had proof. If we were still alive at the end of that, we had a chance. But what if they came down? What if they came to check it out? Or worse, what if they were already leaving? Certain that the job was done? I didn't know. I only knew that, at that moment, lying between branches, stones and pain, I needed to stay alive. But the question that hammered inside me was, why? Why the son I carried in my womb, who I cradled in feverish nights, who I defended from the world, decided to kill me? I still didn't know the answer. But what would come next? It would show that that push was just the beginning. Because what Travis did next, it was even more cruel. The floor of the canyon was damp and hard as graveyard stone. Every part of my body screamed, but I knew I couldn't move a hair. Walter was next to me. I fell, half lying down, with his head resting on a pile of leaves and his face covered in blood. His chest rose and fell, slowly. I trembled inside, but outside, It was a stone. And Chumao, here. I learned there, between the dust and the pain, that pretending may be the only way to keep breathing. We stayed like this, motionless, pretending that death had already taken us. And then, wow, we hear the footsteps, first light, as if watching from afar. You're Tony. Then, closer. Madison's voice came first. Wow. Do you think they... Nyan. She didn't finish. Travis replied dryly. They're dead. No one survives a fall like that. And then, silence. The kind of silence that only exists when someone looks at a body thinking that there is no more life there. I felt his shoe drag a rock close to my face. It seemed that he was examining us as if he were checking a job badly done. Let's go. We have to get out of here before it gets dark, he said. Oh, and she, sighing, now, as if lifting a weight off her back, murmured, "Well, nice city ties." Thank God. They drifted apart. I waited longer. I didn't count the time in minutes, but in heartbeats. When I finally allowed myself to open my eyes, I saw Walter trying to move his fingers. I whispered, with my mouth torn open. "We're alive," he replied, only with a groan. The tape recorder was still in his pocket, intact. And at that moment, even with my leg hurting, my arm throbbing, and the blood in my mouth, a strength began to be born inside me. It wasn't anger, it was something deeper. It was the certainty that it could not end like this. We stayed there for hours, faking death. The pain was so great that sometimes I thought I had forgotten what it was like to live without it. But even among the stones, even with the torn skin, I felt something different. The truth was all before me. Ness and you called. Nessa. No more doubts. No more illusions. I knew who Travis was. That's it. Set me free. If this piece of my life can become a mirror or a hug for someone, will it help me to carry it forward? Like and subscribe here to the channel. It makes more difference than you think. Because what I'm telling you here, it's not just a story of pain. It is also a story of survival, of a new beginning, of justice, the quietest, but the most certain. Night began to fall. We needed to get out of there. But where? How? And Ishima, what if they had taken the cell phones? What if they were just waiting to see if we tried to get up? There were so many questions, but one certainty grew in me. Now that we knew everything, it was our turn to act. And the first thing I needed to do, it was listening to what the recorder had captured, because what Travis said when he thought we were already dead, it was just the beginning of what would come to light. Time seemed frozen down there. Each minute of silence was a battle against pain, against the fear of being discovered, against her own body that no longer responded properly. But we remain immobile, pretending that the last breath had already escaped, until suddenly, we heard voices again. Not help. I am not sorry, but of relief. Travis and Madison returned. They were right up there, near the lookout. And it was then that the truth began to trickle out of their mouths. like ancient poison. Madison complained, "Damn, my shoulder hurts. You pushed too hard." Travis replied in a dry, "Well, what's I?" almost impatient tone. "Listen, what matters is that it's over. We finally got rid of this weight." I froze. I didn't even need to open my eyes to see his face saying that. It was years of pretending, years with Andrew's guilt. It was time to erase the past. And then Madison said what tore apart what was left of what I called family. At least now the house is ours, and with no one else to change the will. The words danced in the air like knives. But what they didn't know is that they were all being recorded. The cell phone hidden in Walter's pocket captured every syllable, every pause, every crime, and even with a broken rib, wow, even with a mouth full of blood, I felt an icy relief. For the first time in years, I had something stronger than suspicious. I had heard the truth. Naked, no. Recorded, one thou. Alive. Travis wasn't just an ungrateful son. He was a murderer, a manipulator, a man who killed a brother and tried to kill his parents, and still had the courage to laugh over the ashes. It's strange, but there, in that rock and fear background, oh no, I felt less weak, because sometimes what gives strength is not the absence of pain, is the name of pain. When it has a name, it has a form. You cow. And when it has form, we can face it. Listening to that recording gave me that name, a form and destination. Now, we just had to wait. Wait for them to leave. Wait for the night to pass. Waiting for the justice that we pray so much in silence to begin to move. Because no matter how much we fall, the truth, the truth always rises with us. You know, if you're still here with me, listening until now, stay a little longer. Time is you, because the strongest part is yet to come. That part that no one imagines. That turn that not even fate had the courage to predict. Because I promise, what do we do with pain? It's what changes everything. Their footsteps drifted away. Wow. First, slowly. Then they disappeared. We were silent for a long time. Walter could barely speak, but he still shook my hand. No. And there, in the midst of darkness, in the midst of what would be our end, what would be our new beginning, began to be born. But how to get out of there without attracting attention? What if they came back? What if the recorder, man, stopped working? Danger still remained. How? And a plan had to be born out of pain. The time down there was no longer made up of minutes or hours. It was made of pain, thirst, memory. The sun had already changed its position, casting long shadows on the rocks and covering our bodies with a heat that punished rather than warmed. My lips were dry, cracked. My throat burned as if I had swallowed glass. And Walter no longer opened his eyes. His breath was short, and his skin was too hot. I began to despair. But not on the outside. On the outside, I continued to be a stone. Inside, a woman praying not to be alone in that abyss. And that's when my mind started to wander. The pain brought with it memories that I didn't even know were still kept. I suddenly found myself holding Travis in my lap, about 3 years old, Mound, crying softly because a toy had broken. But it was not a common cry. He didn't shout, "Whoa." He didn't call, "And shay, I sit in at one. I spit no keywords, which only see what else that you were." He hid his face, coward, and then watching a car. He discerned us down, and cried as if he were ashamed to feel. It has always been like this. Travis has never been one to show weakness. He had acute intelligence from an early age. He knew what to say to get what he wanted. And he knew, above all, what to hide. At the age of 12, now, I caught him taking money out of my wallet. $30. He said it was for the school lunch. But then I found out that I had bought a pocket knife. I was scared. I took it out. I talked. I disciplined. Wow. But inside me, wow, something was disturbed. But we, as mothers, learn to plug these holes. We want to believe so much that we are creating good, that we ignore the first signs of evil. And at Andrew's funeral, the image came back strong. Travis, with his hands in his pockets, staring into nothing, cold, far, you are. At the time, I thought it was his way of dealing with pain. But now, I knew. Now I know. It wasn't pain. It was relief. You know, there are memories that don't comfort. They accuse. They come to show that we saw it. Yes, he just chose not to believe. I keep thinking, how many mothers on the other side of the screen have also felt this? A shiver, a warning, a nuisance, and ignored it? If you've ever experienced something like this, or know someone who has been through it, let me know here in the comments. Sometimes taking it off the chest and putting it into words is what saves us. Right, I remember, or I've felt it, because memory can also be armor. I tore my blouse, wet the fabric with the little saliva I still had in my mouth, and tried to wipe Walter's face. It burned. Neo. Washine at your town. Don't The fever had arrived. I grabbed his jacket and covered his shoulders. I sat, leaning against a rock, and stayed there, waiting. The sky was changing color. The pain settled in my bones like an unwanted guest, and the fear returned, whispering, "What if no one comes? What if they win?" But I answered with silence, because silence, at that time, it was all I still had. But then, in the middle of that crooked wait between life and death, well, I heard a different noise. It wasn't an animal, nor wind. They were steps. But from whom? From someone who came to help us, or go back to finish what you started. The footsteps I heard were quick, determined, but still distant. For a moment, I to talk to you. My heart tightened, fearing that Travis had come back to check if we were really dead. But soon after, soon after, the sound changed. Voices, screams, and then the unmistakable noise of helicopters cutting through the sky. I looked at Walter. Wow. He didn't say anything, but we looked at each other as if knowing. The time has come. Help came, but along with it, the theater would also begin, and we, the protagonists of pain, needed to continue acting. Pretend we didn't know. Pretend we didn't see. Pretend that we were still defeated. Big only then would they reveal themselves completely. We faked fainting. The body was already so heavy that it was not difficult. The dried blood on the skin, the purple bruises, the heat of Walter's fever, everything gave us the exact appearance of what they wanted us to be. Victims of an accident. Ah, my. I heard agitated voices, hurried footsteps. Hands touched my shoulder, pulled my arm with urgent delicacy. She's alive. It has a pulse. Someone shouted. I smelled disinfectant, sweat, rubber from the uniforms. When they touched Walter, holy, he moaned softly, almost a regret, almost a delivery. But I, with my fingers still intertwined with his, squeezed hard. It was the signal. Go on. Resist. Hold on just a little longer. They put us on stretchers, covered our faces from the sun. I heard Madison crying in the background, a high-pitched, strident cry, while more rehearsed than felt. It was horrible. They slipped. It was all so fast. She shouted this between sobs that didn't wet her eyes. Travis, quieter, no, said things like, I told you to be careful. My God, I told you so. And I was there, now, was there, with my eyes closed, with my soul attentive, feeling the staging begin. Their every word was another rope being pulled on stage that they set up themselves. And me? I was in the box of suffering, waiting for the curtain to fall. We were put in the helicopter. The sound of the propellers was deafening, but no more so than the avalanche of thoughts inside me. We were still alive. Now, we still had the recording, but they had the first microphone. They were speaking first. And in the world, who speaks first? It is often the one who builds the most believable version. But I had something they didn't have. Silence. And silence, when it is filled with truth, can overturn any lie. At the hospital, the white lights burned. The smell of antiseptic invaded his nostrils. The nurses shouted numbers. The doctors took turns. We were treated as victims of a tragedy. They called us heroes of survival. And all the while, Madison was there, holding hands with Travis, crying in front of the local newspapers. They're like parents to me. I don't know how it happened, she said. City challenge, how katva, 19 show. And he completed in a choked voice. I just wanted a family celebration. God is a witness. God is a witness. Yes, Travis. And so did the recorder. Walter and I knew we had little time. We needed to recover, but also protect ourselves. Because now that they believed they had won, they would begin to relax, to make mistakes, to show what they really are. And when that happened, The justice that seemed to be asleep would awaken with force. But did the recorder survive the impact? Did Madison or Travis find it and erase everything? Did we still have a gun, or just a wounded memory? These questions still haunted us, but there was something in Walter's gaze, even weak, even feverish, that told me the answer was already coming, and she would not come alone. The first thing I felt was the cold of the air conditioning. Then the constant sound of beeps, monitors, light footsteps. She was intubated, but awake. But no one knew that. Feigning unconsciousness, there was more than strategy. It was survival. Walter was in the next room. I heard, in one of those silent dawns, on the boy, you, his voice softly, mixed with fever. I mumbled names, pieces of phrases that perhaps only I understood. Andrew, Indiciano, Okiantan, Agakaus, Untouchable. Travis, no, no, don't, push. The sound of his pain pierced the walls, and I, even immobile, felt each word like a blade returning to the place where hope once lived. Doctors came and went with pious eyes. The nurses adjusted the sheets as if taking care of someone who was already on his way to another world. Well, I stayed there, firm in my role. And it was in this theater that Madison entered. Red eyes, smudged makeup, a camera in his hands. We want to record the last tribute, she said. I learned the sweet voice, the solemn posture, the posing to you. She was an actress of herself. Travis came after him, silent. Oh, pay, Missida, Nunchakto. She approached my bed, kneeled, straightened my hair as if petting, but her fingers were cold like hers, never stopped being. Mom, the lady was so good. She whispered, staging for the camera, more. And then, you're not even so tired. Turning his face, he whispered to Travis, I've already talked to the lawyer. Now, if she doesn't wake up by Monday, no boss will tell. We sign the documents. And he, with his eyes fixed on me, why, replied quietly, if they wake up, we're screwed. Madison sighed. They're not going. Not after the fall. But neither of them realized is that on the other side of the curtain, a nurse named Lynn was on duty, silent, calm, attentive. Oh, wow. She was the one who changed my sheet carefully, who adjusted Walter's blanket, down, who noticed the tension that didn't match the story told by the family. And now, hearing that, she stood still for a second longer. He didn't ask anything. He did not react, but he kept everything. At the end of the shift, when the corridors were empty and the night lay on the roofs of the hospital, Lynn went to the room where they kept the patient's belongings. She searched calmly, and there, at the bottom of a box, labeled with Walter's name, was the cell phone. The glass cracked but still working. She looked around, put the device in her lab coat pocket, and left slowly. You know, I couldn't see any of that, but I did. Because when we are between life and death, some things don't need eyes. The soul sees. And at that moment, even intubated, even immobile, I knew justice was leaving silence. But what would Lynn hear when she pressed play on that phone? And what would she do with that? Lynn left the room as if carrying a secret that burns in the palm of her hand. Walter's cell phone? New. Calm. Dirty with dirt. With a cracked screen. Still had enough charge to play that audio that would freeze any soul. She went to the employee's room. Now, locked the door carefully, put on her headphones and pressed play. Now, and then, how then? Her world has changed. She heard Madison saying that the house was now ours. He heard Travis admitting that erasing the past was a relief. He heard the word push, the nervous laugh, wickedness dressed in naturalness, and the coldness with which Andrew's name was thrown to the wind, as if it were just another obstacle overcome. Lynn took off her headphones slowly. Wow. Her eyes wide, wide. He took a deep breath. He sat on the edge of his chair and stood there, staring at the wall. She knew that this was not just a medical case. It was a crime, and she now had the key. Not sure where to start. He went to the chief physician. Dr. Halvorsen. Now, a man who had seen a lot but still had faith in the right. He showed his cell phone. Now, told what he heard. No, and asked for confidentiality. He listened to everything, silently, eyed Lyle. Then me, with the gravity of someone who holds a miracle and a curse at the same time. He discreetly called the police. A detective arrived in the late afternoon, without a siren, without a uniform. Only with the watchful eye of someone who already recognizes the lie by the smell. Lynn handed the cell phone into his hands. He listened. He sound from beginning to end. And when he finished, he said nothing. Yes, he only asked to see the patients. He entered Walter's room first, noted. Wow. He wrote something down. Then he came to me. I heard the door opening. The footsteps contained. I felt his presence approaching the bed. He didn't say a word. No. He stayed there for a few seconds. And I knew what I needed to do. Blinked. No. Once. Two. Three. It was the sign that Lynn and I agreed on, in case I wanted to say yes. Here. He nodded. He turned and left without fanfare. But inside that icy white room, I knew justice had found the door. There are things that we live and keep, but maybe by telling, we help another heart to breathe. So if this story is touching you in any way, enjoy this video and subscribe here. We never know where a story can go, nor the strength it can have for someone who is too silent, lying there, feigning weakness, but feeling a new strength being born. I understood that this was just the beginning. The truth was no longer ours alone. She was no longer hidden among leaves and rocks at the bottom of a cliff. She now breathed outside the cave, with voice, with proof, with name. What did he obeyed? But would the detective do anything? Travis and Madison were around, still feigning pain, still smiling for the cameras, still thinking they had won. Would they have time to escape, or would their fall be even higher than ours? The next morning, we found last stitching and tie, so no. The hospital was restless. Nurses whispered through the corridors. Doctors looked at each other with harsher, more alert expressions. News of a detective's arrival had already quietly spread, but no one was sure why. And Travis, as always, seemed to dominate the environment with that false serenity that only the underhanded carry. He and Madison were in the main lobby, sitting side by side, giving an interview to a local TV station that had appeared by chance. The reporter held the microphone as lightly as one holds a lit match, realizing that there was more fire in that story than it seemed. It was an irreparable loss, Travis said, his eyes teary and his voice breaking. Almost perfect. My parents have always been my base, my inspiration. I took them on a trail, a place that Dad loved, and what was supposed to be a tribute turned into a nightmare. Madison, next to her, nodded. She squeezed his arm. Oh, coward, like a precocious widow, even though she was only a daughter-in-law. Mrs. Carpink, Barbara was like a mother to me. The pain is unbearable. The staging was so well done that perhaps it would have convinced me, if I hadn't felt the push in the back, if I hadn't fallen, if I hadn't heard with my own ears the phrase Travis whispered afterward. Now it's over, but it's over for whom? Outside, now, in the parking lot, the sky was clear, the air fresh, as if the world breathed before the explosion. And then, wow, they still one. Vine. Two discreet cars, without sirens, parked in front of the entrance. The officers calmly descended. They wore simple clothes, but with the weight of the law in their eyes. They walked straight to the interview group, without haste, without hesitation. No. Travis Carter, Madison Carter. Oh, baby, we can't sit down. He turned around with a faint smile, still posing for the cameras. But the smile disappeared when he heard the next words. They are in prison for attempted murder and conspiracy. The microphone fell from the reporter's hand. Madison stepped back 2 steps, her eyes wide. None. What? Nay, Yasikasi, he shouted. That's a mistake. She started crying. Real now. Ah, yes, I'll say his that quartet too. But it wasn't pain. It was fear. Travis tried to argue, tried to get to the car, tried to escape the moment. I didn't do anything. This is absurd. The police were firm. Naya, easier. One of them pulled Walter's cell phone from a transparent bag. We have everything here. You confessed. And someone listened. Oh, someone listened. That phrase rang like a bell inside me. Because sometimes the truth doesn't need a crowd. All it takes is an honest ear. From the top of my bedroom window, I saw everything. It didn't need sound. How? The gestures, the interior, soon, and action, our city safes, said more than any words. I saw Travis being handcuffed with fury in his eyes. I saw Madison collapse to the ground, screaming his name, as if it was still possible to escape. I saw the journalists walking away, recording everything with trembling hands. And I saw what marked me the most: the paramedics nearby, wide and east, applauding discreetly. Simple people, unarmed, people who saw us arrive hurt and now saw justice come back. I didn't smile because that was not joy. It was relief. It was coming out. It was the earth coming back to its place after an earthquake. A tear ran down my cheek. Just one. But inside, it was Andrew. There was Walter's silence. There was my fall. There was the hope that I almost died without having. You know, if you've come this far with me, don't let go of my hand yet, because as much as it seems that the worst is over, there was still one thing I needed to do, a decision that still burned inside me like embers. And it was about her that I was thinking at that moment. The world saw their arrest, but was the world ready to listen to everything that was yet to come? The name Carter made headlines on every corner of Asheville. In the pharmacy, in the grocery store, now, in the bakeries where Walter bought cornbread on Saturday mornings. Everyone commented, no. Some did not believe it. Others said they already knew. Travis always had that cold, distant way. Oh, no. But no one was indifferent. The city seemed to awaken from an old dream, as if the veil had suddenly fallen, and behind it was the true face of our family. There no lie that it so donuts at card, to count, naked, now, cracked, raw. The house where I lived for almost 40 years. The same one that Travis wanted to put up for sale under the pretext of our well-being, was blocked by the courts. The furniture, the albums, the sewing machine that I inherited from my mother, was so on you are still book on. You also, everything was now proof. The bank account, which he had suggested turning into a joint savings account with administrative access, was frozen. And with that, the falsified documents came to light. My signatures, 3 of them, used to move high amounts. The name of a bank in Knoxville. Dues, more than $120,000 taken from loan sharks. Our son, sunk in mud. Madison tried. Of course, to disassociate herself, she took on the role of manipulated wife. She appeared in the interviews saying that she never knew the details, that she was as shaken as everyone else. But the audios, the audios. Her voice was clear. You laughing after the fall, whispering about the inheritance, complaining about the work that was taking care of the elderly. The mask did not crack. She fell in one piece, on the floor, down. Their defense, under pressure, suggested a settlement. Why? No jury, no press, oh, no scandal, no how. A discreet confession, followed by a reduced sentence. Clean closing, on the can shell. But I said no. For the first time in my entire life, I raised my voice inside a courtroom and said no. I want judgment. I want to look into my son's eyes and ask what is left of him. I want every word spoken at the bottom of that canyon to be heard by every living soul in that city. I want Andrew to get justice because I may have survived. But he didn't get that chance. No, no. I spent my life thinking that to love was to protect. That silence was a sign of peace. But sometimes silence only feeds the monster. Today, I understand. There are things that need to be said, even if they tremble in their throats, even if they burn in the chest. And so it was that, weeks later, while still recovering, I heard on the radio the announcement of what the press called the funeral of lies, the fall of the Carter family. But this story, that story is not over yet, because on the day of the preliminary hearing, while I was adjusting my blue scarf and looking out the window of the infirmary, someone showed up. Oh, someone I hadn't seen since Andrew's burial. And this presence, this one would change everything. The courtroom was full, not for fame, nor for scandal, but for something older, more intimate, for justice. People from all over the city, sitting on wooden benches, silent. No whispers, no cell phones. Even the air seemed to respect the moment. I was called. Barbara Carter. Now, please. I got up slowly. My legs were still weak. My hips ached with each step. But I went. No, not in a hurry, but firmly, with the weight of the years and the strength of a lifetime of silence about to be broken. I crossed the room, with my blue scarf around my neck and the letter in my hands. As I passed Walter, I felt his hand squeeze mine slowly, as it always did on nights when I couldn't sleep after Andrew died. Mudhowd, unless you are company soon. I looked into his eyes, and I saw him there, not as the man who was silent, but the one who now also stood up, along with me. I sat in the witness's chair, breathed. I looked at Travis. He didn't look back at me. His eyes were downcast, his hands restless. Madison, her hair tied up in a sloppy bun. Me, unalternative, tried to hide the trembling of her fingers. Next to them, the lawyer whispered something that no one else heard. But I wasn't there to listen to secrets. He was there to break them. I opened the letter. My name is Barbara Carter, one son, in 67 years old. I am Walter Carter's wife, mother of two. One of them, Andrew, will not. I've said Calden, as she can't, died at the age of 23 in circumstances that have only now come to light. The other, Travis, died for me at 18, the same day. Stopped. The referee did not interrupt. The jury stared at me with watery eyes. I continued. That day, I lost both. A son fell off a trail. The other fell from my heart. But I only learned about it 30 years later. And I know that perhaps many here think that the worst is over, that suffering ends when the truth comes out. But anyone who has lost someone knows the pain doesn't end. She changes shape. She learns to walk with us. With each sentence, my voice took shape. No, I was pushed off a cliff, literally. Oh, together with my husband. My own son planned this. He planned like someone who organizes a lunch, with schedules, routes, ropes, lies. He wanted to erase history, erase those who saw, who remembered, who could say, no, no. But what Travis didn't know is that mothers don't die like that. Mothers don't disappear with a push. We did, but we also got up. Madison pressed a handkerchief to her face, but her crying, as always, was whispered. Why, London, what's performative? I followed. They recorded their own cruelty, confessed, laughed. They spoke of my dead son as if he were an obstacle. They said they were finally free, that the house was theirs, that the past didn't matter. No, but the past matters, because it was in it that I bathed, cooked, me, sewed, oh no, forgave, and loved these two as someone who loves with everything. And now, I'm here to tell you. I sighed. Oh, I looked ahead. The judge was motionless. The detective, present at the back of the room, closed his eyes as if confirming what instinct already said. When Andrew died, I spent 30 years blaming myself for not being there, for not preventing. Now I know that I wasn't the one who should have asked yourself that. But still, even with everything, I needed to see my son's face, see if there was anything about him that still reminded me of the boy I cradled in my arms. And what I saw, and knew, he was a stranger, a tired, cornered, perhaps regretful stranger, but a stranger. And that is Simacabit. The voice failed, but I didn't cry. I don't want revenge. I want truth. I want my grandson, when he grows up, when to know who his grandparents were. I want him to know that justice is not done with hatred, but with courage. And today I found mine. I closed the letter. The hall remained silent with nice Wi-Fi, a reverent silence, the kind of silence that doesn't come from absence, but from the presence of something too big to be named. I looked one last time at Travis. He then looked up. Oh, yan man for the first time, and what I saw in them, it was empty. Oh, I stood up. When I'm looking at our tower, I walked back. Each step seemed light, as if the weight of all those years had stayed in that chair. I sat next to Walter. He took my hand, squeezed it, and whispered, you're back in one piece. And it was there, right there. I realized I hadn't won just one trial. I had overcome silence, but there was still one last gesture, one last choice that only I could make. And she would come the next day in front of an envelope and seal and a name. A name that no one expected to hear. Travis and Madison were convicted. Why so? Life imprisonment. I doubt. With no chance of appeal. The judge was clear, firm, and fair. No single tear from Madison or argument from the lawyer could erase the recorded words that came out of their own mouths. The truth, when it finally has room to be born, does not need to scream. It just needs to be heard. The house came back to Walter and me, Moo, with legal protection and new fences. But the heart of the house, I rebuilt this one myself, me, with time and with love. The boys, my grandchildren, were handed over to our guardianship. They arrived shy, full of questions they didn't even dare to ask. But I didn't see in them the faces of the parents. I saw seeds, and seeds can bloom if we water them with other water. Here, they play in the backyard, run among the new violets I planted, and on Sundays they smell the pumpkin bread rising from the kitchen. Sometimes one of them asks if the father will come back. I don't lie, but I don't poison either. Well, I say that there are things that need to stay where time has left off. Because time, he teaches, he heals, way, nam, und Captain Carrow, Mudstone. He charges, and most of all, it cleanses. Today, how? Walter still walks with his cane. Mood, no. But he smiles when the boys sit on his lap and ask for a story. And me? I open the window every morning, take a deep breath, and am thankful that I am alive, not only in body, but in soul. When someone asks me if I have forgiven, I show. I look at the sky, breathe slowly, and answer. I don't carry anything anymore. Time has taken care of itself. The great lesson of my life is this. We can be broken, betrayed, forgotten. It can fall to the bottom of the cliff. But true love, the one we build with silence, with hot bread, with notes left in the fridge, this love is stronger than any evil, because he does not scream, but remains, and it is what saves, if not the others, at least ourselves. If you stayed here with me, thanks. Really, it's as if I told this story sitting on the porch with a coffee in my hand, and you there, listening to me with an open heart. How? If you felt something, if any part of this story touched you, enjoy this video. This gesture is like a hug. One of those who say, one, in here, son, Oisinskam, Isipapota. And if you want to stay with me, subscribe to the channel. Oh, that's like telling me you're going back for another coffee. Comment below which city you are watching, and I will love to know where each look that accompanies me comes from. And it activates the bell. Watch out. That way you don't miss out when the coffee is brewed again. Now, don't go away yet. Listen to the next real story that will appear on the screen. Always remember, each wrinkle tells a story, and each story carries a strength. Now, watch the next video here on the channel with another incredible story